Hello, Illustrator fans. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to part four, I believe, final part of the concept sketch to vector graphics in Illustrator demo. This will very quickly cover method three. Method three really isn't so much a method, kind of as a technique. It really boils down to drawing everything as shapes to start with. So that includes all of the line work. I do usually cheat and still use Pathfinder divide to get the main areas to fill with color. You could, once you have all the line work fully drawn out by hand already as shapes, so closed shapes is the key to what I'm going to show you today. You could go the live paint route now that you are familiar. You will notice that I opened up my pencil tool options. What I'm going for here is super hand-drawn with some really different organic variants to the quality of the line work. So I have turned down the fidelity of my pencil tool. Before I start drawing here, let me turn everything on and show you where we are headed. So this is the final artwork that I came up with. We're going to look at drawing the line work for this robot first. Then I'll show you the Pathfinder method of getting the areas for fill out of there. Then I want to go over the blend tool and how I generated the color palette for this very gradual but not using a gradient color shift background here. All right, back to my sketch, and let me show you what I'm talking about for constructing lines here. I'm just playing around with my layers. Obviously, I have quite a bit of stuff built in here. All right, let me show you just down here at the bottom of the head, and let me get a stroke and line weight I can handle looking at up here. Especially with this method for a stroke weight while I'm drawing, I want to use something really small, so I'm on a 1/4 point, because it makes it easier to see when I get back to my starting point so that I can actually close my shapes. So my sketch underneath here was drawn from one of the shape challenge shapes. It is a graphite sketch underneath there. And what you want to keep track of while you're drawing this, I'm drawing one side of that line that is under there. And I'm actually going to do all of this extra, just doubling back around the outside, fill in variants. I'm actually going to draw this little hole for highlight in here. I'm not quite going to come back over to fully close that. I'm going to go ahead and do this extra piece on the other side right here. And then I'm going to work my way back up to where I started. I want to give this a little kind of peninsula to suggest sort of a closed line. Down here at the bottom of the face where I'm at, I want the line work to be thicker. And now I'm back to where I started. The pencil is showing me the little circle to the bottom right of my pointer where I am drawing. That means it's going to close the shape. So when I let go, Illustrator closes that path for me. This is actually now a shape. If I swap my stroke and fill, click off here and turn off my sketch underneath, you can see the line quality that I was able to achieve by doing this. Now, as I go, I will be watching and checking these things and possibly making some very, very small adjustments while I'm drawing, just to make sure things aren't completely disappearing in there. Maybe I came up with, like the example here, a little jut point that I didn't quite want that sharp. There's another one right here that I can pull in. All right, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. I want to make sure that I show you at least two paths and kind of how this goes. So as I'm working up here, I want to start working from thicker, heavier line at the bottom of the face of this robot here, through this section where I want the line work to be a lot thinner. So while we are not overlapping individual paths like we did in method 1 and 2, we're drawing shapes, but we still want to overlap those shapes so that we can take advantage of Unite in Pathfinder, so that when we utilize live paint or minus front to subtract out of another area, so that we have our discrete areas available to fill with color, we're working into one giant solid filled shape as we go. So there's my overlap. I got a nice thin, there's my close indicator. I'm going to let go. I'm going to go to the eyedropper actually and go ahead and fill this. Let me turn off my sketch. And now you can see I'm starting to get somewhere. Now, admittedly, this is not the fastest method in the book. However, there is not a brush out there that will give you this kind of line work. All right, so as I go, I would unite those with Pathfinder. That is now one solid shape. I can show that to you by changing the color. Let me go ahead and turn that off and actually turn on, let me zoom out. This is the final artwork, right? All the way down to drawing the little screws and bolts and connectors and folds, his clawed hand here. And one thing I wanted to point out while I'm taking a look at this is a lot of times when I am working, what I am planning on doing and I'm just trying to figure out where this stuff is in my layers. It's on, but it's not letting me select anything. I must have that locked. There we go. As I was drawing this and layering things, I filled it with really obnoxious kinds of different color, knowing that later on when I wanted to get a hold of these to actually fill it with the final colors, instead of having to go around and select every little piece of this stuff, these are already grouped, but each one of these little yellow pieces here is a different individual shape. By filling with different distinct colors right out of the swatches, only using them once by shape for what the part of the drawing is, for the way I want to fill it, that allows me to utilize select same fill color or fill and stroke or stroke weight. Sometimes I'll do this with line weights, just so that instead of having to grab each individual one, I just selected all of those little green bolts in the tank track down here. That is so handy when you're working on coloring artwork. You'll notice you also have the same select by options available up here in the main application bar. I usually call it the main task bar. If your bar isn't showing that, over here all the way on the right is the options panel for that application bar, and you can check or uncheck the things you want to appear up there. A lot of times when you're looking for something that is context sensitive up there and you're not seeing it, it's because there isn't enough room because there's too much stuff checked in here. So I would encourage you to go through this list and only keep the stuff active that you really want to see up there. Properties panel does a really good job of showing context sensitive materials, but it does not display that select by information the way that the main taskbar can. All right, so let me show you this. So this is all individual shapes and pieces, right? We can see I've got the little arms, its own piece, this little segment right here, the back of this, all this stuff, including these little bolts and everything, is all individual shapes. Not all of it is joined right now. At some point while I was working on this yesterday, I really just started uniting smaller discrete areas more as it was to my advantage, rather than making sure that I was doing that with every single thing throughout here. To utilize Pathfinder to color this, and obviously I wouldn't have done the wheels because those are already set to go as areas to fill with color, because I didn't feel I needed quite as much line work back there. I just drew a rectangle way bigger than all of my outlines. My drawing work that I want is now in front of this. Obviously, I would have that line work duplicated to another layer before I do this. And now I can utilize mine as front to cut up my individual areas for color fill. Whenever you perform a transformation with Pathfinder, it's going to group things. So I click off, click back on, ungroup, and now I have all these areas available to be filled with color as I would care to see them. Okay? All right, let's take a look at that crazy background. Let me go ahead and just turn everything on and leave it unlocked as we're flipping through here. All right, so I started out with filled rectangle as big as my artboard. I knew I wanted to put him in the desert, trudging all by himself, all lonely across the desert. And I just drew in some lines to indicate some sand dunes. And then what I did was just duplicated directly by copy and paste in front some of those lines. I can show you back here on one of these. Copy, paste in front, which is Command F if you are unfamiliar. And then without holding Shift, I distorted these proportionally maybe with a little smidge of the arrow keys, to get that very, very small offset to give me the ridge line above those big lines that I was looking for. Paste in front and just pull that up ever so slightly. Very, very simple technique for getting that sort of thing happening. Then again, I'm into a situation where Pathfinder is my friend, but I want to use divide, and it looks like I did nothing and everything disappeared. But if I click off and click on again, you can actually see the guides where the shapes are cut up inside of there. If I ungroup, and then I can select this topmost portion of the sky here and fill that with a color. Now you can see how I actually got into my colors. Okay, so that's how I built that background. What I want to show you is the blend tool and how I use it to generate color palettes. Rather than leaving large areas and trying to handle this kind of color with a gradient, I'm more of a flat fill and shade kind of person. So the way that works for me, I like to use the blend tool to generate these very, very subtle palettes to use. And the way that works is draw a rectangle, toss your first color as a fill into that rectangle. So I dialed down to this very, very light cream color. I'm actually going to move all the way out over here, so I want to show you a couple ways this works. And then I'm just going to drag a copy of that rectangle down. I'm going to go back to my color picker. I'm going to shade that as appropriate. And what I'm establishing is the lightest and darkest values of that color that I would like to see. That's actually probably a little dark. That's a little better. Somewhere in there is fine. Now I'm going to select both. The blend tool is almost to the end of the icons in the toolbar. Looks like a circle becoming a square. I'm going to double click on that to bring up the blend options. Yours probably will come up the first time on smooth color. I actually want specified steps, and for what I'm doing here, somewhere around 15 is plenty. Now, you can do this two ways. Three actually. You can do object blend make, or you can use the tool itself by clicking on the first item of the blend. Then your cursor will show a plus sign. You click on the second item of the blend, Illustrator will make the blend, or Option Command B will make that blend. I'm going to go back to my selection tool. Now, Illustrator is still holding this blend. It's not individual rectangles like I have way over here. So, bonus to that, that blend is still editable. So if I double click on either the start or finish, I'm now in isolation mode inside of that blend, as you can see across the top of my screen here. What that means is I can still change these colors. That brown or dark tan at the bottom wasn't dark enough, so I can change that color in here. All right, when I do this, if I know I'm going to be generating two colors worth, I will just straight copy that blend over, and then on my second blend, I'll go in and change. Maybe now I want to figure out the sky, so I'll get a really nice light blue to start with, and then for my end color, I'll take that same light sky color, which is here, but shade it down to, let's go somewhere in here is good. All right, and now you can see I've got two blends to work from, so that I can pull these out to usable and possibly even just add them into my swatches palette. I'm going to select them both. I'm going to go to blend and I'm going to go to expand. Now by default these are both going to be grouped, so you want to ungroup, and then now what I can do is pull out the actual color steps that I want out of the blend. I like to move those kind of over to the side. You can see what I was doing here with this background. I really only ended up, I think, using like these top 5 or 6 values into this color palette. What you can do from here with your blend, once you have the values you would like picked out, is you can actually add them to your swatches panel. If you're going to go the live paint route for coloring everything, definitely I would suggest doing this. And maybe you want to do it as 2 color groups. So in the swatches panel, in the options, I'm going to hit new color group. This is going to be my sand. Then I'm going to select my sky blues. I'm going to add new color group, and this is going to be my sky. All right, and now you can see I've got 2 groups or folders of swatches here that I can easily apply to strokes or fills inside of here. All right, and one last time, there's a little peek at VBot 7. All right, that's the old school method and how to create really gradual, sophisticated color palettes using the blend tool. Enjoy.